Hey guys, Mighty Gazelle here. Today I'm going to be bringing you a review of Rogue One. I just saw it with my friend. It's opening night. It's 2:30 a.m. in the morning, so if I look like shit, that's why. That and my camera itself is kind of shitty. Anyway, I'm here to bring you my thoughts slash review on the movie. As of a lot of people are talking about it, a lot of people are excited. So I figured I would give my 2 cents as to what I thought about it. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review. I don't feel like holding anything back because there's a lot to talk about. This was a fantastic movie. It had its problems, but overall, I absolutely love this movie. So I'm going to start with the negative first, to get that out of the way. That way the rest of the review is lots of positives because this movie is full of a lot of positives. There are a few negative things I want to bring up, though. To start with, the lack of an opening crawl. It's been highly talked about, articles everywhere talked about it, people have been talking about it. Does it make a negative impact? Unfortunately, in my opinion, it does. We're so accustomed to seeing the opening crawl of Star Wars movies. You go in and you just naturally expect it to happen. Not that they should have to do it for every Star Wars movie, but in this one, it just sort of starts like that. You just see space and it just starts. It's weird. Looking back, I'm sure in the future it'll be fine. But in the initial viewing of it, I was like, that's kind of weird. So that's one negative. It's not a huge. This is a small complaint, but you know. The second complaint I had was this has also been talked about a lot, but there's a certain character, well, two characters to be specific, that are, due to obvious reasons, they have to have a little bit of CG done to the character to bring them to life again. The first is Moff Tarkin. Now, I gotta say, technology has gone a far ways to making things look very real. And Moff Tarkin is integral to the plot of the Death Star, so he's important to have. But I gotta say, you can tell when you're watching the movie that this is not the real thing. It's needed, but when you're looking at it, you're just like, man, that's not real. This is CG, and I could see it throwing a lot of people off and taking them out of the feel of the movie. I could also see a lot of people accepting this because for what it is, it looks fine. CG has come a long way since the prequels, a la Jar Jar Binks and whatnot. But still, you know, it's when you're watching it, it can feel kind of weird because he's in quite a few scenes, quite a bit more than you'd think a CG character like that would be. The second character, spoilers again, but I mentioned at the beginning, this is spoiler heavy. We have about a 5-second scene with Princess Leia. Now, her CG is done, from what I saw, perfectly. Again, it's only a 5-second scene, but it looked absolutely perfect. I don't know if that's just because I had less to work, like time to work, so just focused on that 5 seconds. I really don't know, but for some reason, hers looks really, really good, and Tarkin's looks passable. I would say passable. So yeah, that was my second complaint, and I have one more complaint. Sorry about all the complaints, but I'm going to get to the good stuff in a little bit. The movie starts out kind of slow. The first half or so, it's kind of a drudge. There's a lot of great things going on. There's a lot of great visuals for the fans to just eat up and digest. The music's great, the camera work is awesome, but in terms of plot, it's going very slowly, very just baby steps at a time as we're introduced to all these characters. And I might sound like this is a major complaint, but it's really not. It feels a little bit slower compared to the later half of the movie. It's still very enjoyable, though. Don't think it's not enjoyable. The acting is fantastic. We learn a lot about the characters, and the plot eventually picks up steam and moves on. Let's see. The first positive that I want to talk about, I will say the music is actually pretty good. Now, John Williams does not return to compose music for this movie. I can't remember the name of the guy who came in for this movie, but he's done a lot of good work before. I think he worked with Star Trek movies, the new ones, and Up, like Pixar and stuff like that. So he's well known in his field. I think he did a pretty good job of recapturing the Star Wars magic. The second positive, man, this movie looks fantastic. It's so grounded. It feels so real. When I was watching The Force Awakens last year, which I do like that movie a lot, so if it sounds like I'm going to get negative here, I love the movie. But it seemed like when I was watching that, a lot of it didn't feel tangible. Like when you were, how do I say this? When we had scenes like the Starkiller base and whatnot, and a lot of it's just all this animated scenes coming by, the blowing up of the planets and stuff like that. It looked good, but it didn't feel real. It felt like these characters were just kind of looking at something happening that wasn't there, which they weren't, so it's understandable. In this movie, you feel like you're actually there. You feel like you're experiencing these things from the same viewpoint as them, and that was absolutely amazing, and something that no Star Wars movie really has done before. And what I'm trying to portray this in the right way. It feels like you are one of these soldiers that is going through these battles. You feel there's a scene where they're getting ready for the battle on the planet where the Death Star plans are, and it's somber. You see all these people. They know the chances of them living through this are slim to none, and you feel that weight and you feel that emotion that the characters are portraying. And the biggest thing that this movie really does well for the Star Wars universe is the episodic Star Wars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They have a certain range of how dark something they will go and how, like, obviously cheerful moments. The episodic movies, in my opinion, they don't really go super dark. You can argue the Empire Strikes Back with the death of, the emotional turmoil Luke was going through. You can go to 6 with Darth Vader dying, or 7 with Han Solo dying. But there are more dark things than just one tragic death. In this movie, almost every character you encounter and get to know, they die. It's jarring, but in a good way. The spectrum is full now. You can actually see how far the Star Wars universe goes. It's not all roses and happy things and victories. Behind the scenes, there are these troops that are just fighting tooth and nail for the victory, and this movie just brings that to light, and that's something we haven't really seen in a Star Wars movie before. We've seen war, obviously, with the Clone Wars and the original trilogy, obviously, but this one is the first one that you really feel for these people that are dying. Like in the Clone Wars, you just see a bunch of animated guys fall and drop and die, and that's it. But in this movie, these are people that you sympathize with. You've learned about them. You've seen them interact. You've seen them smile, laugh, and all of a sudden they're gone. It's pretty interesting, and I really admire this film for bringing that to the masses that we can all see. It's a nice peer into the darker side of things in the Star Wars universe. I gotta talk about the space battle. The space battle was absolutely awesome. So up until this movie, the best space battle, hands down, easily was the Battle of Endor. I don't think many Star Wars fans would argue that. Some might say the battle over Coruscant in Episode 3. Sure, that was a good battle, but I mean, nothing could even compare to the Battle of Endor. It was so emotional and just a beautiful spectacle of filmmaking. And this movie, this one challenges it. It really does. The second they come out of warp speed and you see all these large capital ships and fleets of X-Wings flying by, ready to help out their troops on the ground, I don't know, you get kind of goosebumps, because you got these people who were just saying they didn't want to go to war, and this guy comes in, he's like, screw it, I'm sending all my guys in, and here we go, we're going to help these guys out. And they go in, and they're battling against these 2 Star Destroyers and the fleet. It's good stuff. It's really... And the camera work is awesome when it goes into the pilot's sort of cockpit and it shows what they're doing, their facial expressions. Man, you can tell those ships are just held together by duct tape, and I love it. So the Star Wars, the space battle is great. The characters, the sort of Rogue One ensemble of close-knit troops that they have together, they're really Okay, I should have talked about this in the negative segment, but they are awesome, but you don't get any, you get just skin deep for most of them. You don't get that much deeper. And I get that there's not enough time to explain all these characters because, yes, there's a lot of them, and it would take probably an hour alone just to give them all fleshed out backstories. So, by all means, I completely understand why they didn't do that. I would have loved to see more about them because really only two of them we get any real depth of, and it's Donnie Yen's character. I can't remember his name in the movie, but he was awesome. He was the force wielder of the crew, and he constantly preached about his faith to the force, and you just got the sense this guy's a badass, and he was such a pure joy to watch in the film. And let's see, the other one was K2SO, the robot of all things. Man, that guy stole the show. He out of all people that died, him and I can't remember Donnie Yen's character. I can't remember his name. I'll remember it later. It's 2:30 a.m. Cut me a break. But those two, when they eventually die in this movie, it is such a heartfelt death, and you really feel sad for these characters. Donnie Yen's friend that he had, the one guy with the crazy hair, and he had like the awesome like automatic gun. His death was tragic too. But you really felt for these characters when they passed away, and when Jin and the guy, I can't remember his name. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on these names right now. When they die on the beaches, they look off into the distance and they see the explosion coming at them. It also is a heartfelt scene, and I have to give props to Felicity Jones for a specific scene. There's a scene where she's listening to her father on the hologram, and her expression in that scene is so powerful. You can see her giving it her all to portray a great, just gripping moment. And in terms of acting, that was top notch, absolutely great acting. The final thing that I want to touch on is probably the part that made me the happiest as a Star Wars fan, and that was Darth Vader. Darth Vader did return in this movie for about 3 scenes. Now, a lot of people are going to say, why didn't they put Vader in it more? They had the opportunity to show the greatest villain of all time in Star Wars and have him just steal the show. My opinion is, I think he was in it perfectly enough. I think that if he was in it anymore, it really wouldn't be a story about these rebels. It would be about Vader and like more about him. And I can see the temptation to want to put him in the movie more, but man, what he was in, it was perfect. It was awesome. It was everything that I wanted to see from Vader in this movie. The scene where he's like choking that Admiral guy, and you just like you're grinning, you got goosebumps on you, and he's like, "Don't choke on your aspirations," and man, it's good stuff. And here's the scene that everyone's going to be talking about after they see this movie. It's the final scene. Vader's boarding the rebel ship, and they're all frantically trying to get these plans out of there, get them to the rebels, and there's this room locked with the rebels, and they look to the side, and there's just this dark end of the corridor, and boom, his lightsaber turns on, and the look on that rebel's face, he knew. He's like, holy shit, we're about to die. And to say that scene was simply amazing does not do it justice. We never have seen Vader, at least in the movies, kick butt like that. We saw a guy who was like fighting Ben Kenobi like this, you know. We had a much better fight scene with Luke where he moved around more and used the Force and whatnot. But this one, that man was on a mission of purpose. He was blasting laser fire. He was choking fools, throwing them at him, taking their guns away, and just that was easily the best moment in this movie. It was the absolute scene stealer, and it was a tremendous joy to watch. So I think about it now. I'll wrap up my feelings about this movie. When I was little, the reason I became a Star Wars fan might be a little bit different than what a lot of you became Star Wars fans for. I think most people enjoy Star Wars for the Jedi the Force and lightsabers and the story of Anakin and his struggles. And don't get me wrong, that is the reason I got one of the reasons I got into Star Wars too. But the reason that I love Star Wars personally as a Star Wars fan is the world, the characters, the people in the backgrounds, the aliens, the ships, the technology, not politics. I mean, that's kind of boring. We saw enough of that in the prequels. But just I wanted to see what the people how they dealt with the imperial reign over their territories. Like what was the oppression like? What was this movie did a great job of portraying the rebels in not such a clean light like we thought. They take kind of bold measures, there was a scene where in order to protect Felicity Jones, his character, Jen, he shoots this guy who's holding a grenade, and the grenade drops and kills about a dozen innocent people. This is a rebel. They just let innocent people die. This is a group that is desperate to fight the Empire, and if they need a few people to die to get in the way, then they will take that chance. They're not so clean cut. So that's why I really enjoyed Star Wars, and to see this movie explore that so well, it is simply amazing. And I enjoyed this one more than Episode 7. Go ahead, comments are down there. If you disagree with me, feel free to tell me why this movie is not better than Episode 7, because I respect your opinions, believe it or not. I think that everyone's entitled to love whatever they want to love. This one, every movie strikes chords differently with people, and this one struck all the right chords with me. Again, there are a few little things that weren't perfect, but no movie is perfect, whether you want to say it or not. Every movie has its flaws, and this movie had a few flaws, but overall, I think it was a fantastic Star Wars movie, and I cannot recommend Rogue One enough. Please go check it out. I'm sure a lot of you already have, but it definitely belongs in the Star Wars universe, and it was completely awesome. So, this has been Mighty Gazelle, and thank you for watching this. May the Force be with you, and hope you all have a mighty day. See you guys.